Good day everyone, welcome back to Assessment and Evaluation in Social Science. So today we are going to discuss alternative assessment. To accurately evaluate what students have learned, teachers need to use a method which will assess the students' collective knowledge and skills. This alternative method of assessment is what educators call today as authentic assessment of learning. Okay, so let's start this by defining authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. It is a process of engaging on worthy problems wherein students have to use knowledge to come up with effective and creative performances on tasks that are analogous to the kinds of problems people face in the real world. Okay, so sa madaling sabi, ang concept lang ng authentic assessment, it's the application of what students have learned inside of the classroom. So kung ano yung natutunan ni student, okay, kung ano yung na-introduce ni teacher na lesson, dapat mai-apply ni student sa totoong buhay. Okay? And that is authentic assessment. Ina-apply na nila sa totoong buhay yung natutunan nila. For example, tinuro ni teacher yung concept ng debate sa mga students. Okay? Tinuro niya yung rules, tinuro niya kung paano makapag-debate. So ano ang magiging authentic assessment niya? Of course, kailangan niya ring magpa-debate sa loob ng klase. Okay? Para mai-apply na ng mga students yung natutunan nila kay teacher. Okay? And that is authentic assessment. This type of assessment accomplishes the following goals. Number one, it requires students to develop responses rather than select from predetermined options. So, ang ibig sabihin lang nito, okay, ang mga students na mismo ang bahalang mag-construct ng sarili nilang response or answer. Unlike sa traditional assessment wherein meron silang mga options. Okay, for example, multiple choice, matching type, meron sila mga options dun. Hindi na nila kailangan mag-construct ng sarili nilang response or answer. Unlike sa authentic assessment, nire-require na sila mismo yung mag-construct ng response nila. Okay? Second, it elicits higher order thinking in addition to basic skills. Okay, so sa authentic assessment kasi, okay, ang focus nito ay mga higher order thinking skills. Okay, so hindi tayo magre-rely dun sa mga low-level thinking of skills. Okay, so dito na papasok yung application, yung creation, okay, and dito na rin yung analyzation. Number 3, uses samples of student work or portfolios collected over an extended period of time. So dito naman napapasok yung portfolio assessment wherein may mga collections ng mga best work, okay, ng mga output ni students. The next one stems from clear criteria made known to students. So dito na papasok yung rubrics natin, okay, yung rubrics natin na may mga criteria. And dapat kapag gumagawa tayo ng rubrics, alam din ng students yung content ng rubrics natin. Ipapakita natin sa kanila kung ano yung nakalagay sa rubrics para meron silang guide kapag gagawin na nila yung performance task na bibigay ninyo. Okay, next one, it allows for the possibility of multiple human judgment. So dito na papasok yung peer assessment na hindi lang naman si teacher ang pwedeng mag-assess sa performance at sa output ni student. Pwedeng yung mga classmate ni student, pwedeng yung ibang tao, peer assessment. Okay, and the next one, teaches students to evaluate their own work. So ito naman yung tinatawag nating self-assessment wherein students na mismo i-evaluate nila yung sarili nilang output or sarili nilang performance. Okay, educators call authentic assessment by alternative names, notable among which are the following: performance assessment, alternative assessment, and direct assessments. So ito yung mga other terms na tawag sa authentic assessment. It is called performance assessment as learners are required to do meaningful and realistic tasks. Educators almost regard authentic assessment as performance assessment as learners are asked to perform a real-world or authentic task or context. So ang common term sa authentic assessment ay performance assessment. Bakit performance assessment? Of course, authentic assessment kasi it requires performance of students, okay? Na nasabi ko nga kanina, yung natutunan nila sa loob ng classroom, kailangan na nilang may apply sa totoong buhay para masabi natin na may learnings talaga na na-acquire ang mga students. Alright, authentic assessment can also be called alternative assessment. This is due to the fact that authentic assessment is an alternative way of measuring and evaluating students' learning, which is different from the traditional form of assessment. So, ang authentic assessment, tinatawag din siyang alternative. Okay? Pag sinabi kasi nating alternative, pwedeng maging substitute. Okay? Kasi hindi lang naman traditional form of assessment ang pwede natin gamitin sa mga students. Hindi pwedeng nagre-rely lang tayo dun sa mga objective type of test. Okay? That's why meron tayong iba't ibang assessment na pwedeng gamitin sa mga students. Why? Kasi hindi naman natin ma-measure sa isang assessment lang yung knowledge, okay? Yung skills ng isang bata. Kaya dapat tayong mga teachers, okay, magaling tayo, knowledgeable tayo sa paggamit ng iba't ibang assessment. Okay? Kaya wala tayong best assessment para sa lahat. So there is no best assessment that we can use to assess our students and evaluate their knowledge, their skills, and their capabilities. Okay? Okay, another one. It is also commonly called direct assessment. This is attributable to the reality that authentic assessment provides a more direct evidence of meaningful application of knowledge and skills. Getting a perfect score in an objective or essay test is not a guarantee that the student can apply what he had learned in real-world context. His or her direct demonstration of the application of knowledge and skills is the best indicator of that learning. Okay, tinatawag ding direct assessment ang authentic assessment. It's because of the direct evidence. So, madedetermine na agad ni teacher kung talaga bang natuto si student or hindi. Paano niya madedetermine, sir? Of course, by applying what the students have learned inside of the classroom. For example, tinuro ni teacher yung concept ng oral communication sa mga students niya. And if ever na may maka-perfect ng kanyang quiz, it's not the best indicator of learning. Why? Kasi hindi natin masasabi na kahit na perfect ni student, yung written test niya ay talagang may apply niya na yung natutunan niya about oral communication. So, ang best assessment na gamitin natin is magpa-performance task tayo. Okay? Gamit tayo ng authentic assessment. Okay, instead na written test ang ibigay ni teacher, mas better kung magbigay na lang siya ng performance task, okay? Since ang topic niya ay oral communication, pwede niyang igrupo yung mga students niya and then magkaroon sila ng dialogue, okay? So, meron ng communication dun. Dun niya na ma-determine kung talaga bang natuto si student at kaya niyang i-apply yung natutunan niya sa totoong buhay. Okay, so now let's move on to the similarities and differences between authentic and traditional assessments. Traditional assessment refers to the first choice measures of multiple choice tests, fill in blanks, true, false, matching, and the like that have been and remain so common in schools. Students typically select an answer or recall information to complete the assessment. These tests may either be standardized or teacher-made types of tests. Okay, so hindi naman na bago sa inyo yung concept ng traditional assessment. Okay, so sa traditional assessment, dito na papasok yung iba't ibang type of test. For example, yung multiple choice, matching type, true or false, and so much more. And usually, sa ganitong mga type of test, ay kailangan lang nilang pumili ng sagot. Meron na silang options. At the same time, recall of informations lang ang mga ito. So, magre-rely lang siya dun sa low-level thinking of skills. And pagdating kasi sa traditional assessment, meron pa yung classification. So, meron tayong standardized test and teacher-made test. So, when we say standardized test, it's a test given to students in a very consistent manner. Okay, from the word itself is standard, meaning that the questions on the test are all the same. Ano example ng standardized test? Of course, yung mga board exam. Okay, yun ay example ng standardized test. Kasi kung ano naman yung content or ano yung questions na in-exam sa Region 2, ganun din naman yung exam nung ibang takers, okay, exam takers sa ibang region. Okay, another one, yung sa may admission test, okay, kapag kayo ay mag-enroll sa isang school, okay, kung ano yung pina-exam dun sa mga ibang students na mag-first year, ganun din yung mga latecomers or yung mga newcomers na mag-enroll. Pare-pareho, may standard sila, okay? And usually, ito ay valid na and reliable kasi nga nagamit na sila sa matagal na panahon. And na-eliminate na rin yung mga invalid questions, yung mga ineffective questions. And then dun sa teacher-made test naman, napakasimple lang from the word itself, gawa ni teacher na usually ginagamit niya lang to sa kanyang class or sa loob ng classroom or just to measure personal achievement of the student in the class. Okay, so now let's compare traditional and authentic assessment. So sa traditional, it must possess a body of knowledge and skills. Okay, so dito yung mga basic skills, basic knowledge yung tinuturo. Okay, more on remembering, more on low-level thinking of skills. Sa authentic naman, must be capable of performing real tasks. So, ang goal naman nito is dapat ang mga students ay ma-perform nila, ma-apply nila sa totoong buhay or in the real world yung kanilang natutunan. Sa traditional kasi, kailangan lang nilang matutunan yung mga concepts na tinuturo ni teacher, yung mga informations na tinuturo ni teacher. Next one, under traditional, schools must teach this body of knowledge and skills. So dito, si teacher naman ang in charge, okay, na i-spoon feed or turuan si student. So ang gagawin lang dito ni student ay makinig at tanggapin yung mga informations. Kumbaga sa traditional, nagiging teacher-centered na siya. Sa kay teacher nang gagaling lahat ng informations. And then sa authentic naman, schools must help students become proficient at performing tasks. So ang goal na lang dito ni teacher ay maging facilitator at i-guide si student. Okay, so si student ang bahala sa paggawa ng isang task. Okay, so ang role lang ni teacher ay gabayan si student. So dito naman sa authentic, magiging student-centered na siya. Okay, so next one sa traditional, test the students if they acquired the knowledge and skills. Dito naman kasi sa traditional, makikita natin or madedetermine natin if natuto si student sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng mga test. Okay, ng mga written test. Okay? Sa authentic naman, have the students perform meaningful tasks. So, doon naman natin madedetermine kung na-apply talaga nila or nalaman nila or may natutunan sila dun sa tinuro ni teacher. Okay, another comparison of traditional and authentic. Okay, sa traditional, selecting a response. So, yung nasabi ko nga kapag traditional, dito na papasok yung multiple choice, matching type, true or false, and so much more. So, meron na silang choices, meron na silang options. Ang gagawin na lang nila is mamili ng tamang sagot. Sa authentic naman, silang bahalang mag-perform ng task. And dito naman sa traditional, contrive or replicas, ibig sabihin unreal. Okay? And then sa authentic naman, real life na yung mga tasks na pinapagawa sa kanila. And then sa traditional, it's just a recall or recognition. Okay? More on remembering yung level naman sa traditional. And then sa authentic naman, construction or application na nung natutunan nila. Okay? And then sabi ko nga kanina, sa traditional, teacher-centered siya. And then sa authentic naman, student-centered. Okay? And then sa traditional, indirect evidence. Kasi nga, hindi natin masabi kung talaga bang natuto si student if ever man na mataas ang nakuha niyang score sa written test or na perfect niya. Unlike sa authentic na direct evidence talaga siya na makikita talaga ng dalawa nating mata if na-perform ni student yung concept or yung natutunay niya sa loob ng classroom. Okay, so now let's move on with the use of authentic assessment inside of the classroom. So Mueller listed and explained 4 important reasons why teachers have to use authentic assessment methods in their classroom, side by side with the traditional paper and pencil test. So meron tayong 4 na reasons kung bakit natin kailangan gumamit ng authentic assessment according kay Mueller. So number 1, authentic assessments are direct measures. Through authentic assessment, we can be assured that students do not just know the content of the subjects in the curriculum when they graduate. They can be provided with the opportunity to use acquired knowledge and skills in the real world. So the use of authentic assessment methods will enable teachers to directly check for the ability to apply knowledge by asking students to use what they have learned in a very meaningful way. Okay, so this is what I have mentioned to you earlier. Authentic assessments are direct measures. Madedetermine agad ni teacher kung talaga bang natuto si student dun sa content of the lesson or dun sa concept na tinuro ni teacher sa classroom. Okay, paano niya madedetermine? Of course, i-apply na ni student yung natutunan niya sa classroom. Next one, authentic assessments capture the constructive nature of learning. A considerable body of research on learning has found that learners cannot simply be fed knowledge. Learners need to construct their own meaning of the world using information they have gathered and were taught and their own experiences with the world. Thus, assessments cannot just ask students to repeat back information they have received. Students must also be asked to demonstrate that they have accurately constructed meaning about what they have been taught. Furthermore, students must be given the opportunity to engage in the construction of meaning. Authentic tasks not only serve as assessments, but also as vehicles for such learning. Okay, so dito na papasok yung meaningful learning experience. Kumbaga, nire-relate na ngayon ni student yung natutunan niya, yung bagong concept na natutunan niya dun sa mga experiences niya at dun sa previous learning na natutunan niya. Okay, so ang gagawin ngayon ni student, pagkoconnect-connectahin niya na lahat, yung experiences niya, yung mga learnings niya in the previous years, and yung bagong informations na natutunan niya. Okay, and that's the time na makakapag-construct na siya ng sarili niyang knowledge or sarili niyang meaning dun sa new concept na matututunan niya. Number 3, authentic assessments integrate teaching, learning, and assessment. In the traditional assessment model, teaching and learning are often separated from assessment. A test is administered after knowledge or skills have been acquired. In the authentic assessment model, the same authentic task used to measure the student's ability to apply the knowledge or skills is also used as a vehicle for student learning. Okay, so kumbaga ito naman ay full package na, okay? Meron ng teaching, then merong learning, and of course nagkakaroon na rin ng assessment. For example, si teacher nag-present siya ng word problem na kailangang isolve ng mga bata. Itong mga students na to, they are learning in the process of developing a solution. So dun pa lang sa process ng pag-solve nila, natututo na sila. And teachers are just facilitating the process. So ang role na lang dito ni teacher ay to facilitate the process or the learning of the students. Okay? And then yung solution ngayon ni students dun sa problem become an assessment, okay, on how well the students can meaningfully apply the concepts. So kumbaga, nasabi ko nga kanina, it's a total package. Number 4, authentic assessments provide multiple paths to demonstration. Learners have different strengths and weaknesses on how they learn, as well as on how they can best demonstrate what they have learned. Regarding the traditional assessment model, answering multiple choice questions does not allow for much variability in how students demonstrate the knowledge and skills they have acquired. Testing favors those who are better test takers and does not give students any choice in how they believe they can best demonstrate what they have learned. Okay, sa authentic assessment kasi, it provides different tools on how can we assess the students' knowledge and skills. Kumbaga, marami tayong options. And take note, hindi naman lahat ng student ay pare-pareho ng skill. Meron yung iba na magaling sa dance, yung iba magaling sa singing, yung iba naman magaling sa arts. Okay, so dapat ang mga teachers, they have to be knowledgeable enough with different types of assessment. Take note, there is no best assessment that we can use to different kinds of students, okay? So, kailangang meron tayong variety. Unlike sa traditional assessment kasi, such as multiple choice questions, it does not allow for much variability. And yung traditional assessment kasi medyo biased din, okay? Meron siyang pinapaboran. That's why hindi dapat mag-rely si teacher sa traditional assessment lang. It is recommended that multiple and varied assessments be used to assess students. Variety of measurement can be accomplished by assessing the students through different measures that allow the teacher to see them apply what they have learned in different ways and from different perspectives. Authentic tasks tend to give the students more freedom in how they will demonstrate what they have learned. By carefully identifying the criteria of good performance on the authentic task ahead of time, the teacher can still make comparable judgments of student performance even though student performance might be expressed quite differently from student to student. Okay, so this is what I have mentioned to you earlier. The teacher must be knowledgeable enough. Dapat maraming alam si teacher na different types of assessment. Dapat magaling siya mag-isip ng different tools na pwede niyang gamitin to assess the learnings of the students. Okay? Take note, there is no best assessment na pwede nating gamitin sa lahat ng students, okay? There is diversity in classroom. Magkakaiba sila yan. Magkakaiba sila ng learning intelligences, magkakaiba sila yan ng learning styles. So, dapat tayo yung mag-adjust, tayo yung mag-adapt. Okay? And take note, kapag authentic task kasi binigay natin, di ba may freedom ang mga bata na mamili kung ano yung gusto nilang performance. Okay? So, yun ang maganda sa authentic assessment. And of course, pag nagbigay kayo ng authentic assessment, make sure na lagi kayong merong criteria at dyan napapasok yung rubrics, okay? Para ma-avoid yung pagiging bias ni teacher. Okay, so now let's move on to the nature of portfolio and portfolio assessment. So let's define portfolio. Portfolio is a form of alternative assessment intended to accumulate evidence to measure growth over time of a student. It is a purposeful collection of student work that exhibits students' efforts, progress, and achievements in one or more areas. Each portfolio might contain a selection of exemplars of the student's work, such as written products, journals, post-writes, reflections, graphics, spreadsheets, email messages, websites, digital video, questionnaires, and interviews. So, madali lang naman ang ibig sabihin ng portfolio, okay? So, ang portfolio, ito yung ginagawa natin nung nasa elementary tayo, nung nasa high school tayo. It's a compilation or collection ng ating mga output. Okay? Ang kagandahan kasi dito sa portfolio, ma-determine natin yung evidence of growth. Makikita mo yung progress ni student from day 1 until succeeding days. Portfolio creation is the responsibility of the learner, with teacher guidance and support, and often with the involvement of peers and parents. Evidences gathered in the process provide verification of enabling skills as well as verification of outcomes in multiple content areas and real-life settings. Okay, so ang kaganda naman sa portfolio, hands-on dito ang mga students. Responsibility nila, silang bahala kung anong i-include nila at ilalagay nila sa kanilang portfolio. Ang role na lang dito ni teacher is to guide and support the students. And of course, may involve na rin dito yung peers, okay? Yung pwedeng maging classmates niya, and of course, yung parents, pwedeng magkaroon tayo ng peer assessment, wherein mga classmates niya, pwede nilang i-evaluate yung portfolio or yung output ng isang student, okay? And then yung parents, dapat ma-involve din sila rito para makita nila yung growth and development ng kanilang mga anak. Okay, so let's have a comparison of traditional and portfolio assessment. Sa traditional assessment, it measures students' ability at one time. For example, nag-discuss ka ngayon, nagpa-quiz ka, yun na yun. Okay? So, na-measure mo na yung ability ng students. Sa portfolio, it measures student ability over time. Why? Kasi dito, compilation to ng mga ginawa ni student. Okay? Doon sa portfolio niya, makikita nyo yung growth niya, yung develop niya from time to time. Okay, sa traditional done by teacher alone, student often unaware of criteria. Of course, sa traditional, since teacher-centered nga siya, si teacher lahat ang gumagawa. And unaware din or hindi alam ni student yung criteria. Sa portfolio naman, done by teacher and student aware of criteria. So, dito naman sa portfolio, may freedom ang student na mamili. Okay? Meron silang freedom to choose what type of outputs yung ilalagay nila dun sa kanilang portfolio. Ang mga students din, aware sila sa criteria or dun sa rubrics. Okay? So, pinapakita yun ni teacher, dinidiscuss niya yung rubrics sa mga students para meron silang guide tuwing gagawa sila ng output sa kanilang portfolio. Sa traditional naman, assign student a grade. Okay, sa portfolio involves student in own assessment. Sa traditional, si teacher ang balang magbigay ng grade sa mga bata. And then sa portfolio kasi, na-involve na dito ang student. Since sinabi ko kanina, merong self-assessment, merong peer assessment. So, i-evaluate ni student yung sarili niyang gawa. At the same time, pwede siyang i-evaluate ng kanyang mga classmates. Then sa traditional, it does not capture the range of students' ability. So, very limited nga sa traditional since more on written test ang na-involve dito sa type of assessment na to. And then sa portfolio naman, it captures many facets of learning performance, okay? So, napaka-flexible sa portfolio. Pwedeng marami siyang ma-measure, okay, na skills and learnings of the students. And then sa traditional, it does not include the teacher's knowledge of student as a learner. So, hindi makapagbigay ng feedback si teacher dun sa performance ni student or dun sa output ni student. Unlike sa portfolio, it allows for expression of teacher's knowledge of student as a learner. Pwedeng magbigay ng comment si teacher, pwede siyang magbigay ng mga suggestions dun sa mga outputs ni student. And then, sa traditional, it does not give student responsibility. So, since ang traditional nga ay teacher-centered, ang role lang dito ni student ay makinig, okay, i-receive lahat ng mga informations na galing kay teacher. Unlike sa portfolio, students learn how to take responsibility. So, yung portfolio nga, since individual yun, silang bahala kung paano nila de-designan, kung paano nila aayusin, sila rin magde-decide kung ano yung ilalagay nilang mga output. Okay? So, responsibility yun ng mga students. Sabi ko nga kanina, ang gagawin lang ni teacher sa portfolio assessment is to guide. Okay? To guide the learners and support the learners. Okay, so next, why do we use portfolio assessment? Portfolios provide teachers with a tool for showing what, how and how will students learn both intended and incidental outcomes related to their curricula and students' needs and interests. They provide students and teachers with creative, systematic, and visionary ways to learn, assess, and report skills, processes, and knowledge associated with the 21st century. Ito naman yung maganda kasi sa portfolio assessment, nakikita natin yung progress ng student natin. Nakikita natin kung meron bang development, kung nag-excel ba siya sa klase. For example, di ba sa elementary meron niyang first grading to fourth grading. So, kumbaga sa first grading medyo hindi pa ganun kaayos, kaganda yung mga output niya. And then as you can see, kapag malapit na matapos yung school year, pag malapit na kayo sa fourth grading, nakikita mo na may improvement na kumbaga nag-excel na si student. Okay? So, yun ang maganda sa portfolio assessment. Nakikita natin yung progress ng bawat student. Okay, using the portfolio in the assessment of learning. Portfolio assessment has clear goals. These goals are decided at the beginning of instruction and are clear to the teacher and his or her students. Okay, so dito naman kasi sa portfolio assessment, binibigyan ni teacher ng freedom yung mga students kung ano yung mga output na ilalagay nila sa portfolio nila, and at the same time, humihingi si teacher ng suggestion sa mga bata. Kumbaga, merong interaction, hindi lang si teacher yung nagde-decide, hindi siya nagiging authoritarian. And why it is being said that portfolio assessment has clear goals? It's because there is collaboration between student and teachers. Sabi ko nga kanina, hindi nagiging authoritarian dito si teacher. Meron siyang freedom. Okay? Binibigyan niya ng chance yung mga students na magbigay ng kanilang ideas, ng kanilang thoughts. Okay? And sa simula pa lang, okay, meron na silang kasunduan. Okay? Klaro na yung kasunduan, yung goal nila, at the same time, kung ano ba yung mga dapat nilang ilagay dun sa portfolio assessment nila. Okay, so talaga meron silang goal. Number 2, portfolio assessment gives a profile of the learner's abilities. It enables students to show quality work, demonstrate a wide range of skill, and show efforts at improving, developing, and demonstrating progress over time. So ito nga, yung nasabi ko kanina, ito naman talaga yung maganda sa portfolio. Nakikita natin yung progress ng bata from time to time. At the same time, pwede niyang ipakita rito yung different skills niya. Okay, and of course, yung quality ng kanyang output. Next one, portfolio assessment is a tool for assessing a variety of skills. It can include written as well as oral and graphic products of student learning. So, napaka-flexible ng portfolio assessment, okay? It can assess variety of skills. Kahit ano pwede niya namang ilagay dun sa portfolio niya, mga documentation ng kanyang best work. Okay? Next one, portfolio assessment develops among students awareness of their own learning. Students have to reflect on their own progress and the quality of their work in relation to identified goals. So, ito na yung sabi ko kaninang self-assessment. So, aware sila sa sarili nilang learning. Pwede nilang i-assess yung sarili nila kung talagang may natutunan sila, kung meron bang progress na nangyayari sa performance nila. Ito yung tinatawag nating self-assessment. I-assess nila, i-evaluate nila yung sarili nila mismo. Portfolio assessment develops social skills. Students are also assessed on work done collaboratively, in pairs or in groups, on projects and assignments. So, sa portfolio assessment din kasi, pwede rin niyang by group. Okay? So, nade-develop nila yung social skills nila. Merong collaboration. Pwedeng by pair, pwedeng by groups. Okay? Kapag gagawa sila ng output. Next one, portfolio assessment develops independent and active learners. Students must select and justify portfolio choices, monitor progress, and set learning goals. So, sa portfolio assessment, may freedom ang mga bata. Paulit-ulit ko na sabi na they can monitor their progress. Okay? Pwede sila mag-set ng learning goals nila. Kumbaga sa performance nila nung first grading hindi pa ganun kaayos, pwede silang mag-set ulit ng another goal, which is dapat mas malampasan nila or mahigitan na nila yung standard na sinet nila para sa sarili nila. Okay? So last one, portfolio assessment can improve motivation for learning and achievement. Empowerment of students to prove achievement has been found to be highly motivating and encouraging. Okay, so sa portfolio assessment, it can improve motivation. Why? Nasabi ko nga kanina na sa portfolio assessment, pwedeng magbigay ng comment, pwedeng mag-suggest si teacher, at pwede niya ring i-praise yung output ni student. So, pwedeng ma-motivate talaga sa student sa portfolio assessment. At the same time, of course, pwede niya rin naman to ipakita sa parents niya, okay? So, kapag nakita ng parents yun at nagandahan, so pwedeng yun pa rin yung maging reason para mas ma-motivate pa si student na galingan palalo, okay? Next one, portfolio assessment is an efficient tool for demonstrating learning. Different kinds of products and records of progress fit conveniently into one package. Changes over time are clearly shown. So, ito yung maganda sa portfolio assessment nga, na there is progress. Makikita mo talaga yung progress ng student. Okay? So, makikita mo talaga kung nag-excel ba siya or hindi. Next one, portfolio assessment provides opportunity for teacher-student dialogue. It enables the teacher to get to know each and every student. So, sa portfolio assessment, since na-mention ko na kanina, pwedeng magbigay nga si teacher ng feedback, pwede siyang magbigay ng comment, pwede siyang magbigay ng suggestions sa output ni student. And of course, na-motivate din si student kapag alam niya na may care at ginaguide siya ni teacher. So we have types of portfolio. So first one, we have the best work portfolio. This type of portfolio highlights and shows evidence of the best work of learners. Frequently, this type of portfolio is called a display or showcase portfolio. For students, best work is often associated with pride and a sense of accomplishment and can result in a desire to share their work with others. A major advantage of this type of portfolio is that learners can select items that reflect their highest level of learning and can explain why these items represent their best effort and achievements. Bakit siya tinawag na best work portfolio? May clue na kayo. Okay, yung best. Ibig sabihin, ilalagay lang ni student sa portfolio niya yung mga best output niya or yung best work niya. And then, yung mga hindi naman kagandahan, hindi niya na yun isasali dun sa portfolio niya. Okay, so ang other term for best work portfolio ay display or showcase portfolio. Ipakita yung mga magagandang output ng students. Okay? Of course, pipiliin nila yung mga best work nila, yung sa tingin nila maganda. Ang major advantage naman nito is may freedom yung mga students na piliin yung mga sa tingin nila ay magandang output nila. Okay? And pwede nilang i-explain bakit nila kino-consider na ito yung best achievement or yung best output nila. Next type, we have the growth portfolio. A growth portfolio demonstrates an individual's development and growth over time. Development can be focused on academic or thinking skills, content knowledge, self-knowledge, or any area that is important in your setting. When growth is emphasized, a portfolio will contain evidence of struggle, failure, success, and change. The growth will likely be an uneven journey of highs and lows, peaks and valleys, rather than a smooth continuum. The goal of a growth portfolio is for learners to see their own changes over time and in turn, share their journey with others. So may clue na rin kayo pag sinabi natin growth portfolio. Ito na yung development, yung growth nila over time, yung progress nila, kung nagkaroon ba ng progress, kung nag-excel ba sila from day 1 until dun sa last day ng kanilang school year. So dito naman sa growth portfolio, pwede nilang i-include dito yung mga struggles nila, yung failure nila, and then yung success nila. Okay? So yun yung mga evidences na dapat ma-include sa growth portfolio para ma-determine talaga natin yung mga development na nangyari, yung growth na nangyari. Okay, so now let's move on with the creation of rubrics. Okay, what is the purpose of rubric? Of course, to give students informative feedback. So, yun naman yung pinaka-goal kung bakit gumagamit tayo ng rubric, para magkaroon ng feedback. And at the same time, para ito yung maging guide ni student tuwing merong ibibigay na assessment task si teacher. Okay? Okay, so this is an example of rubric and slogan poster. So, itong rubric na nakikita nyo ngayon sa screen, this is an example of analytic rubric. Sa rubric kasi, meron tayong two types at na-discuss ko na yan sa inyo. We have the holistic and analytic. Ito ay example ng analytic rubric kasi detailed siya or napaka-detalyado. Kapag ka-holistic kasi, general lang siya. Okay, so why do we use rubrics first? Instructional rubrics are easy to use and to explain. With the use of rubrics in the classroom, students can be aided in articulating what they had learned and by the end of the year be expected to be very accurate in assessing their own performance and that of their classmates. Even parents will be in a better position to understand the strengths and weaknesses of their sons and daughters. Okay, so ang purpose naman talaga ng rubric kung bakit tayo gumagamit ay unang-una ay para mag-guide or merong aid yung mga students kung ano ba dapat yung dapat nilang i-focus, okay, kapag gagawa sila ng performance task. Pwede nating ma-determine, pwede nating ma-identify yung strengths and weaknesses ng mga students natin. At the same time, madali lang siyang gamitin at madali lang siyang i-explain sa mga students. Second, instructional rubrics make teachers' expectations very clear. Using rubrics in teaching can make the students aware of what is expected of them in order to get high grades. That's why, kapag magbibigay kayo later on ng performance task sa mga students, laging huwag niyong kalimutang ibigay yung rubrics. Okay? Lagi niyong i-explain sa kanila yung rubrics para later on, hindi sila mag-question kung bakit mababa yung score nila or yung nakuha nilang grade. Okay? That's why, very important na sa una pa lang, dapat yung pagkaka-explain mo sa mga students ay very clear na about dun sa iyong rubrics na gagamitin. Third, instructional rubrics provide students with more informative feedback about their strengths and areas in need of improvement than traditional forms of assessment do. Students can learn from an instructional rubric in a way that they can't learn from a grade. Okay, so yun nga, ang purpose naman talaga ng rubrics is to give informative feedback. Okay, ang kagandahan dito, pwede nilang ma-determine yung strengths and weaknesses nila. Unlike kasi sa traditional form of assessment na hindi makapagbigay ng feedback about strengths and weaknesses of students. Fourth, instructional rubrics support learning. Students who use the rubric to assess themselves learned more. Self-assessment supported by a rubric was related to an increase in content learning. So, ito naman ang kagandahan sa rubrics. It supports learning. Okay? So, ito yung self-assessment wherein ang mga students pwede nilang i-assess yung sarili nilang performance, yung sarili nilang output. And from here, kapag na-assess na nila yung sarili nila, that's the time na pwede na silang mag-reflect, pwede na silang mag-exert pa ng effort if ever na hindi sila na-satisfied dun sa performance nila or dun sa grade na nakuha nila sa kanilang output. Fifth, instructional rubrics support the development of skills. Simply handing out and explaining a rubric seemed to help students perform better, though improvements were not guaranteed. It appeared that more intensive work with the rubric might be helpful. Okay, so ang kagandahan din sa paggamit ng rubrics, it support the development of skills. Yun nga, since merong feedbacking na nangyayari, madadetermine nila yung strengths and weaknesses nila, especially yung weakness nila, kapag na-determine nila, pwede silang mag-exert pa ng effort, okay, para ma-develop yung skills nila. 6. Instructional rubrics support the development of understanding. Knowing the criteria utilized in grading outputs and performances with the use of rubrics developed for the purpose can facilitate greater understanding of what constitutes good work or output. This is because they come to internalize the qualifications and standards to be complied with should they aspire for high grades. Okay, so since sa rubric nagkakaroon ng development of skills, possible din na magkaroon ng development of understanding. And the last one, instructional rubrics are useful in that they help students become more thoughtful judges of the quality of their own and others' work. When rubrics are used to guide self and peer assessment, students become increasingly able to spot and solve problems in their own and in one another's work. Okay, so this is about self-assessment and peer assessment na. Okay, so pwede nilang i-assess and evaluate yung sarili nila at the same time, yung output, yung performance nung classmate nila, yung peer assessment na tinatawag natin. So what to do after creating a rubric? Creating rubrics is the hard part. Using them is relatively easy. Once you've created a rubric, give copies to students and ask them to assess their own progress on a task or project. The point is for the rubric to help students learn more and produce better final products. Okay, so remember na kapag nagbigay kayo ng performance task, okay, or ng output, make sure na meron kayong kopya na ibigay sa mga students. Or if ever nawala, i-explain nyo na sa kanila yung rubrics na gagamitin ninyo at saan part ng rubric ninyo or anong criteria doon yung may pinakamataas na percentage and at the same time yung may pinakamababang percentage. For example, magpapa-essay ka. Okay, 50% mo organization of ideas and then yung spelling, grammar, punctuations ay 30% lang. Okay, and then yung cleanliness magiging 20%. So, dun magpo-focus ngayon si students sa may organization of ideas kasi nga 50% siya. Okay, so dun magpo-focus ngayon ng students para makapag-produce sila ng better final products or outputs. Next one, always give students time to revise their work after assessing themselves and then have them assess one another's work. Emphasize the fact that peer assessment like self-assessment is intended to help everyone do better work. Parents can use rubrics to help their children with their homework. Finally, when you assess student work, use the same rubric that was used for self and peer assessment. Okay, so that ends our lecture for Lesson 14, Portfolio Assessment Methods, and Lesson 15, Creating and Scoring Rubrics. So thank you so much for listening. BSEd, xoxo.